I first want to get a sense of kind of the big macro issues, the competing issues that you have seen, Mr. Chairman, as part of your mandate. And in particular, what I was interested in, is there a concern about the projected growth of benefits, of retirement, that ultimately will be or could be taking away from training and readiness? I think we all want to make sure we're taking care of our troops. I think, though, sometimes what gets lost is ultimately the best way to take care of them is to make sure if and when they need to go fight, that they come home alive. And is that an issue that the commission has had to deal with on a broad scale, this kind of tension between competing issues that we're looking at with regard to military expenditures?
Mr. Chairman, can I take that question?
Senator Sullivan, thank you very much for your question. I knew that Commissioner Kerrey would want to answer this question, so I'm going to ask him to respond.
Please.
Well, since I'm notoriously holistic in my thinking about such things, look, I argued, and I think commissioners were persuaded that for us to address this problem that you've identified without addressing the big one Social Security and Medicare. That's what's crushing all the appropriations accounts. And it would be unfair to identify military retirement as the big problem, because it isn't. The big problem is Social Security and Medicare. So it seems to me to address military retirement without going after Social Security and Medicare is basically saying we're going to balance the budget on the back of our military retirees, and I think that it would be a wrong thing to do and send a terrible signal.
Could I jump in here?
Yes, sir.
Since I had to deal with exactly that question inside DOD when I was comptroller. First of all, there's a huge misunderstanding as to how much is really being spent on our military as part of the defense budget. People think it's 50%. It's not. It's 29%. We write about that in our report. If you add the civilians, the defense civilians, that brings it up to about 40%. But that's a whole other category. That's not something we focused on. The real issue is, can you modernize what you are offering to your military at the amount of money that you're spending? And if you can spend a little less and modernize a little more, so much the better. And that's where we started. We started with modernizing. We started with choice. We started with what my fellow commissioner doesn't like, holistic approaches. But that's where we began. And then we looked at how things fell out. And it turned out that you actually could save the government money as well. You could actually do better by your people and still save the government money, which tells you how inefficient the current system is. And the reason it's inefficient is not it was deliberately so. When the all-volunteer force started, who was in it? Mostly young men, unmarried. Now look what we have, a completely different kind of force. So we have to be concerned about ECHO programs. We have to be concerned about child care. We have to be concerned about a lot of different things that just weren't paramount in 1975. That's how we approached it. And we did save some money, but that wasn't the driver. And it shouldn't be.
Senator, I'd be very careful getting sucked into this debate of people versus procurement.
I'm not just talking about procurement. I'm talking about hard training for our troops.
Again, this isn't the way, frankly, this is not the issue, because the amount of spending on personnel has been level. The real problem, and I think Senator Ayotte pointed it out and several others, is there's just not enough money going to defense. Full stop. That's the issue.
When you hear that personnel costs are unsustainable, the baseline that's used for that is year 2000. Why was the question you should ask is, why was year 2000 chosen as the baseline to prove that somehow personnel costs were unsustainable? Well, Congress made a lot of conscious decisions to improve the personnel system. So we did redux reform. We improved we did the VA formulary reform. We changed the pay tables, and we did TRICARE for life. And then as you went into war, we did the GI Bill and the pay raises. So there's a reason, a clever reason, why year 2000 was chosen.
And I would only add, and I'm telling on myself now. My staff used to tell me to come up here 21 times, and if you go back and look at my testimony, I always quoted the fully burdened cost of a soldier. And I learned through this commission work that the cost of a soldier hasn't really gone up. It's what you hang on that soldier. Look at it. Look at an M16 rifle and what it looked like in Vietnam, and look at that same weapon system today with all the sights and bells and whistles that we're putting on it. And when you look at fully burdened cost, you're rolling in the additional cost of other things and applying that to personnel accounts, which I was totally wrong in doing that. And I apologize.
And one last point. One last point, which is really important. General Kerrey pointed out that he couldn't imagine, neither could I when I came in 2001, that we'd be at war for 13 years and we'd be able to keep all the people we kept. Well, if Congress and the executive branch had not done what it had done, as Congressman Boyer said, in 2000, 2001, 2002, do you think we would have kept them?
It's very rare we get an apology from a general before this committee, and I hope we'll mark this as a historic moment. I thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm surprised balloons and confetti didn't drop from the sky.